So I want to welcome everyone to Public Safety Headquarters, the Tom Manger Public Safety Headquarters, and our Montgomery County Police Award Ceremony. This is really kind of neat. This is the first live one in a while. COVID's relenting. It's allowing us to come back together. We had a really good presentations, virtual. We've become kind of experts in that. But I will tell you, being in person, seeing the families, the friends, the loved ones is really special. You don't get that from this virtual environment. So I want to thank everyone for being here. With that, I'm going to call up Sarah White, who's going to perform our national anthem. If I could have everyone please rise for the presentation of colors.
Forward, march, left, 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 right, left, 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 right, left, 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 right, left, left, detail, halt. Preset, arm.
Oh, say, can you see by the dawn's early light what so proudly we hailed at the twilight's last gleaming, whose broad stripes and bright stars through the perilous fight o'er the ramparts we watched were so gallantly streaming, and the rocket's red glare, the bombs bursting in air, gave proof through the night that our flag was still there. Oh, say, does that star-spangled banner yet wave o'er the land of the free and the home of the brave?
Order, arm. Right shoulder, arm. Ready, cut. Right, face. Forward, march. Left, 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 right, left.
If everyone could please remain standing, I'm going to ask Pastor Greg Zetz, who's been with us through the last few days. He's been with us through the years, but the last few days have been tough. He's with us again today, and he'll be delivering our invocation.
Good afternoon. Psalm 34 verse 4 says, I sought the Lord and he answered me and he delivered me from all of my fears. The Lord is close to the brokenhearted and saves those who are crushed in spirit. Father, we're here today to remember and recognize and honor the men and women who have sacrificed and have been faithful to the call of duty. Your word says that we are to honor one another. So I ask that each one would be strengthened and encouraged through this ceremony today. Lord, we live in a society where some seek to diminish the value of those who serve in uniform. Yet your word says there is no authority except that which God has established. The authorities that exist have been established by you, Lord. So may this truth empower these men and women to continue in their calling as peacemakers in this great county. Father, I also pray for your comfort, for the manifestation of your comfort and your grace to be upon this entire department. And I just thank you for your mercy today. In your name I pray. Amen. Amen.
Please be seated. Again, it is truly great that we can come together again and share in what are truly tremendous acts by our law enforcement community. Today we're going to recognize people that have saved lives. We're going to recognize supervisors that really through their actions have saved lives. So it's really terrific that you're here. We do have a couple of distinguished guests I wanted to recognize. Always a friend of ours, the Honorable Sidney Katz from the Montgomery County Council. Sheriff Darren Popkin, who has led the way in our legislature to take care of police interests, sheriff's interests this past year as we deal with the Police Accountability Act. So Sheriff Popkin, thank you. Also with us, Deputy Sheriff, a guy that I've done a few things with over the years, Max Wee is with us. And our assistant chiefs for the Patrol Services Bureau, Assistant Chief Willie Parker Lone. For the Investigative Services Bureau, Chief Dinesh Patil. For the Field Services Bureau, Assistant Chief Mark Yamada. And filling in for Civilian Assistant Chief Carmen Facciolo is Captain Mark Ermey for the, there's a whole bunch of words there, community, thank you. Also, I'm looking out in the audience and we got some more distinguished folks here. I got my neighbor, Lieutenant Jim Humphreys. Hi, Jim. We're gonna celebrate you. Jack Hack, who is the president of our Alumni Association. You'll hear from him later. Brian, I'm not going to recognize you. Jeff Nice, I see here, retired Sergeant Jeff Nice, who has been rewarded time and again for a very distinct heroics, for a very distinguished career. Thank you for being with us, Jeff. So, I alluded to the fact that Pastor Zetz has been with us for the last week now, almost a week now. It started with our promotional ceremony, and then unfortunately, on Monday morning, during the very early hours, we lost Lieutenant Dan Fritz. Dan committed himself to this department in many special ways. He was a ball of fire. I've had the pleasure to work with him through the years. This award ceremony itself, we saw him recognized multiple times. He was recognized twice for Chiefs Awards. He was also recognized for a pop project that he conducted, and also received the National Defense Medal. So if you could stay with me, have a 30-second moment of silence for Lieutenant Dan Fritz. Thank you. Now, despite this cloud that hangs over us right now, this is a time to celebrate. It's a time to celebrate heroics. It's a time to celebrate achievement. It's just time to celebrate accomplishment. I see loved ones out here. Don't be shy, all right? When mom, dad, friend, son, daughter get up here, make sure they know you're out here rooting them on. Please embarrass them as much as you can, because that gives me more fodder for the next time I do this in person. We want them to understand in this time of policing that we're emerging from, right? This crisis that has been the last, oh my gosh, it keeps dragging on, right? COVID, reimagining George Floyd. We're coming out of that now, and it's because of the actions of these men and women that are showing the community that despite it all, despite what the few have to say, they're still at work. They're still doing what they need to do to protect their community and protect their community proudly. So Be loud, be proud, call it out. Dave Roloff's taking pictures. We will get to the awards, but first, there's many more important people than me to speak. None more important than the Chief of Police, Marcus Jones.
Thank you, Assistant Chief Frank, and I must piggyback on Assistant Chief Frank's words to say, first of all, good afternoon to everyone, and welcome to the Public Safety headquarters here for our quarterly award ceremony. It has been a long time. It is good to see people. I have to smile because it is really good to see people. This place has been like a ghost town for a while over the past couple of years. I would almost say a year plus. But I will say that what I am most proud of is the fact that what you'll hear today is the reality that police work didn't stop, and that our folks did a tremendous job, and it needs to be recognized. And I am so proud and happy to be here today to be able to recognize the men and women of our police department that you don't hear about on the 6 o'clock news. These are the stories that won't be told, and it's unfortunate, but we're going to tell them today. We're going to find more ways to tell them for folks who want to listen to our stories and hear them, and I think that's an important part of where we are in today's environment, because people must understand that these are human beings who care about people, and I believe that the stories that you will hear today will show you how much they care. I also want to recognize someone in the audience that who I am so glad who was able to join us today, and that is the FBI Special Agent in charge from the Baltimore Field Office, Tom Sobocinski. So Tom, great to see you today. Thank you for being with us. I would also like to say, again, knowing that we have had a very tough week this week, and it's still tough, losing our dear brother, Dan Frizz, who I love very much. Dan worked with us throughout his career, and as Assistant Chief Frank noted, Darren's heart was large. He would do anything for anybody, and he worked very hard for this community. It is a tragedy of what has occurred, and we are praying for his wife, Katie, and their 3 daughters. Katie, who is also a member of our department, and we know that we need to be there for them. And I am very proud of our agency, the men and women, both sworn and professional staff, who have taken their time to wrap their arms around the Frizz family, as well as wrapping their arms around each other, because I know there are many of us that are still hurting as a result of our loss. And I would also share that, in Dan's career, it started really, his law enforcement career started with the Sheriff's Department under Sheriff Popkin. He went on to say he wanted to have a little bigger thing, so he went to the city of Gaithersburg Police Department and joined them. And then he had to come to the greatest thing, and he came to the Montgomery County Police. So, but I'm grateful, and they knew the work ethic of Dan, and I know they share those same sentiments as well. One of the attractions of law enforcement as a career is that no 2 days can be the same. The way we recognize those in our department who have done extraordinary work reflects that culture. Last week, we honored those who train our next generation of police officers and celebrated the promotions of those who have done well in the past and who are expected to do even better in the future. The duties undertaken in those awards are measured in weeks, months, and even years. But today is different. Today, we honor those who had to act in the moment to make a difference under stressful and complex situations. We honor those who help to make our community more caring. We honor those who, through tireless dedication, help to solve crimes and bring criminals to justice. One of our honorees today administered CPR that saved a man's life from what's called a widowmaker heart attack. Other officers, while at a complex and chaotic crime scene, saved the life of a stabbing victim by applying a tourniquet while evacuating others from the house where the crime took place, while others saved the life of a man who had been repeatedly shot. There are many other stories like this, and you will hear about them today. Whether saving the life of a colleague with CPR, or creating cards and videos to brighten the day of seriously ill children. These are the kinds of stories we need to hear more often so that we can recognize the extraordinary service of our men and women who render to the community, and so the community can see the value as well. So today, to all of the award winners, congratulations, and most importantly, thank you for what you have done. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Chief. And now, if we could have Councilmember Sidney Katz.
Thank you, Assistant Chief. Good afternoon, and thank you very much for allowing me to participate in today's award ceremony. I'm truly honored to be here. I came to congratulate and thank all of the heroes that are going to be recognized today and those who are not being recognized today. I certainly do not have to mention to anyone here today that being a police officer has never been an easy job. My own brother was a Maryland State Trooper. And of course today, it is even more difficult. We thank you for using your skills, for saving lives, and helping people during, perhaps, the worst crisis that they had ever faced in their lives. We thank you for doing a job in a professional and caring manner, and for keeping all of us safe. And we thank you and your families for sharing you with us. For all that you do for all of us each and every day, I'm here to say two words you sometimes rarely hear, but should always be said by all of us. Thank you for being our heroes. Thank you very much.
Thank you, sir. So now's the fun part. We get on to the awards. Now, I do things a little bit unorthodox. It makes people nervous. It may make fun of people I see in the audience. I see you over there, bro. Don't wait. Don't worry, I got something for you. But I will say I'm getting like frantic, technology's great. I'm getting frantic texts. Don't forget the FBI. Well, I didn't. I actually wanted to say something about our relationship. So first of all, and I was saving it for here because we're doing your gentleman's award first, the FBI awards first. We in Montgomery County have the privilege of having a long, distinguished, terrific relationship with the FBI. My professional relationship with them started back in the serial sniper investigation. It continued on investigating bank robberies. It continued on after that with even the Lyons sisters investigation. I know these gentlemen up here, assistant chiefs, have worked many hours with the FBI. It truly is special that you would come here today, be part of our ceremony, and recognize Montgomery County Police Officers for their work with the FBI, with FBI agents all across the country. We've been involved. So we are truly proud of that relationship. We're thankful that you would partner with us. I mean, that's what we do, right? But there are organizations, when they get together and they click, just like we do with our sheriffs, it makes very special things happen. So with that, I'm very happy to introduce Assistant Special Agent in Charge Ruggieri, Special Agent in Charge Sobosinski. If you gentlemen could come up.
we get to go first. That's always a fun thing. It's a real privilege to be here. I've been in law enforcement for 30 years. I started as a police officer. I've been in the Bureau for 23. We're here to talk about an event that was just routine police work. That's all it was. It's something that everybody in this room who's carrying this badge does on an everyday occurrence. You're going to hear about some heroic moments, and we should reward those. But what I'm going to talk to you about is what we expect and what happened in this event. And it started back a few years ago with a missing person. There was a report here in Montgomery County that an individual was missing. You get those every day, and you do a lot of things with those. But in this case, the detectives and the officers that heard this recognized that something didn't fit. And what didn't fit was the backstory of this individual, of who he was, what was going on in his life. And what unfolded over a several-day period was a search for this individual, identifying his vehicle, recognizing that what his vehicle was. It could potentially be located in another jurisdiction, in another state. They found that vehicle. We were able to work with our partners in that other state to realize that there was in fact a U-Haul truck that was stolen from the same parking lot where this missing person's car was located. I'm going to cut to the chase. It stopped a terrorist event. I told you what I've been doing for 30 years. I do not have the honor of coming up and actually saying the actions of the individuals we are going to honor today stopped the terrorist attack. In this event, they absolutely did. And if you go back and you talk to these individuals and you hear these stories, my gut is they're going to tell you, I just did what I normally did on a regular basis every day. And so on behalf of Director Ray, that's what we're here to honor. This is the director's certificate. Unfortunately, he could not be here today, so I will be serving in his place. And so, Rick, we've got the list. Let's do it. And I appreciate everything for everybody that you're doing it.
Thanks, sir. The awards that I'm going to call, if the folks are here, if you come up, we have a item for you. Detective Sergeant Mary Beth Corsiato. Don't slaughter your name, my apologies. Detective Corporal Kevin Marston. Detective Diana Humphrey. Detective Robert Finkelstein. Detective Michael Sofolkanik. Sorry. Detective William Heverly. Detective Michael Miglianti. Detective Timothy Spellman. Detective Scott Sube. Officer Ronnie Young. And Officer Jason Huggins. I'd like to add to the SAC's comments. I supervise the Rockville office and the Frederick office, and I've had the pleasure of working with this department for several years. It's been an amazing relationship. The task force officers and the detectives and police officers that work with us in our joint investigations, it's amazing. The sacrifice, the diligence, the perseverance, the professionalism is second to none, and I want to thank, on behalf of SAC Sobocinski and our office, thank you for all that you've done for us. So this is a small token of our appreciation.
Yeah! All right, Daddy. Woo! There you go. They got the idea. I like it. All right. Well, thank you. That was very special. I appreciate it, gentlemen. It's we look forward to many, many, many more years of a relationship. The So now we're going to get into a number of awards. We're going to move them around because of the speakers, and that's my job to make sure it gets moved in the right way. I'm going to make sure I mess with whatever Gagan has going on because I can. You do get best hair. I am looking back. I saw Witherspoon. Spoon. Oof. That is a tie. I like it, man. I can't pull that off. But we do have the same hairstyle. That's some good stuff there. All right. So, first off, we are going to be doing a Pop Project award. And if I can have Commander Nick Augustine come on up here. There he is.
Good afternoon. I have the honor today to actually present 2 awards to 18 officers assigned to the 4th District. So I'll read the synopsis of the event and then have the officers come on up. In July 2020, while the community was facing challenges related to the COVID-19 pandemic, Sergeant Palekia understood the need to find safe, innovative ways to engage the community while adhering to restrictions. Through his research, Sergeant Palekia located a local nonprofit called Kits for Hearts. Kits for Hearts provides care packages to patients undergoing cancer treatment. As part of the package, the organization includes encouraging cards and paper-folded art to bring a smile to those fighting to beat cancer. During the summer of 2020, officers from Shift 3 Lincoln and 4 King participated in making cards. While these skills are not taught in entry-level or in-service training, Sergeant Palekia and Lieutenant Kim put on their art instructor hats and taught the officers how to make these unique cards. With their new skill at hand, officers crafted over 100 creative cards with encouraging words and sealed it with an MCPD sticker. While some didn't raise to the level of the Mona Lisa or the work of the Michelangelo, their compassion and dedication surpassed the value of any masterpiece. In October 2020, the completed cards were presented to Kits for Hearts. Officer Lowry and Officer Goodale from the Public Information Division were present to record this event and spent an extensive time editing to create a final product. The video was released across all MCPD social media platforms. Officer Goodale coordinated with local news outlets to provide coverage of this positive community engagement project. Kids for Hearts notified the officers that some of their handmade cards were included in cancer care kits for pediatric and adolescent patients at Johns Hopkins Children's Center. These officers used their creativity and skills to bring a smile to those that were facing difficult challenges while promoting a compassionate image of the department. I am honored to award these officers the Problem-Oriented Policing Award for going beyond and above their normal duties and spirit of community policing. The officers are Lieutenant Sung-Young Kim, Sergeant Brandon Palekia, Corporal Fernando Pugh, Officer Charles Heffley, Officer Fritz Calderon, Officer Benjamin Peloso, Officer Joe Lowry, Officer Rick Goodale, Officer Julia Dreyer, Officer Cody Hobbs, Officer Brian Denston, Officer Chaz Atherley, Officer Joshua Watson, Officer Jesse Lesko, Officer Mercedes Thomas, Officer Robert Nunez, and Officer Alexandria McKinnon. Congratulations. The next award is the Life-Saving Award. During the evening of August 29th, 2021, 4th District officers were dispatched to a residence for a suspicious situation. Officer Lipscomb was one of the first officers to arrive on scene and observed a male subject standing in the front yard. Officer Lipscomb and an additional officer attempted to contact the male subject, but he became aggressive and approached them with a box cutter in one hand and a machete in the other. Both officers immediately created distance from the subject and ordered him to drop the weapons. The subject refused to comply and continued to act in an aggressive manner. While maintaining watch of the subject, Emergency Communications Center dispatch advised officers that there was a bleeding victim inside the residence that needed immediate medical assistance. The caller stated that the victim had been severely stabbed by the armed subject and was quickly losing blood. Based upon this information, Officer Lipscomb volunteered to go with 2 additional officers to the rear of the residence to extract the victim. While other officers were negotiating with the armed subject, the 3 officers made tactical entry into the residence through the back door. As soon as Officer Lipscomb entered the residence, she immediately observed that the victim, who was bleeding profusely from his forearm. Officer Lipscomb relied on her training and experience to begin administering life-saving first aid. Officer Lipscomb was providing care. The armed subject in the front yard heard the commotion inside and began to walk around towards the rear of the residence. While an emergency exit plan was being coordinated, Officer Lipscomb continued to multitask by addressing the wound to stop bleeding. The interior officers were able to safely get all the occupants out of the residence and get the victim to an awaiting EMS unit. Officer Lipscomb never left the victim's side and offered medical assistance while riding in the ambulance to the local hospital. During the chaotic and dangerous scene, Officer Lipscomb demonstrated a high level of professionalism, bravery, courage, and skill. Shortly after the victim was treated at the hospital, Montgomery County Fire Rescue informed the shift supervisor that Officer Lipscomb's emergency medical care saved the victim's life as the laceration struck an artery. For the actions that Officer Lipscomb took to save the victim's life, I am proud to award her the Life-Saving Award.
Lots of proud people for her. We're all very proud of her. Okay, now, Commander Sean Gagan from the 2nd District will be coming up here to talk about another life-saving award.
Good afternoon. If I could please have Officer Damon Johnson come to the stage. On May 26, 2021, at approximately 11:42 a.m., Officer Johnson was assisting Lieutenant Adam Curry on a traffic stop in the area of Carter Rock Springs Drive and River Road. While on the traffic stop, Officer Johnson was approached by a construction worker from a construction site across the street. The construction worker notified Officer Johnson that there was a man on the site who was dying of an apparent drug overdose. Officer Johnson immediately requested fire rescue and rushed over to the construction site to provide medical aid. Upon arrival, Officer Johnson observed the victim lying unconscious and unresponsive on the ground. His lips and skin were purple, and he did not appear to be breathing. Officer Johnson attempted to rouse the victim by utilizing a sternum rub with no effect. Another construction worker was attempting to assist Officer Johnson in rendering aid. The worker told Officer Johnson that he felt a pulse, but Officer Johnson quickly realized that the worker was using his thumb to check for a pulse and was likely feeling his own pulse and not the victim's. Officer Johnson checked for a pulse and was unsuccessful. He immediately began chest compressions and CPR. After the second set of compressions, the victim gasped and stirred but went right back to unconsciousness. Finally, after a fourth round of compressions were administered, the victim regained a pulse and began to breathe on his own. Upon arrival, fire rescue took over treating the victim and administered the victim a dose of Narcan that immediately took effect. There is no doubt that Officer Johnson's quick and decisive life-saving actions on that day saved the life of the victim. He remained calm during a chaotic situation and was able to apply his training to render aid to an individual in distress. I am extremely proud of Officer Johnson's efforts that saved the victim's life. Therefore, it is my pleasure to present Officer Damon Johnson with a life-saving award for his actions on that day. Congratulations. For the second award from the 2nd District, I'd like to have Officers Joshua Hess, Anthony Ferris, and Nana Bakri come to the stage. On June 30th, 2021, at approximately 2:30 a.m., officers were dispatched to the 8800 block of Lanier Drive for a shooting. The officers quickly arrived on scene and located an individual inside an apartment suffering from 3 gunshot wounds to his chest. The victim was going in and out of consciousness and told the officers that he could not breathe. Officer Ferris quickly grabbed his first aid kit and assisted Officers Hess and Bakri as they began to provide life-saving efforts to the victim. The officers did a quick assessment of the victim's injuries and identified that he had a sucking chest wound. The officers quickly and efficiently applied an occlusive dressing to the sucking chest wound and were able to stabilize the victim. Fire rescue arrived on scene and took over providing medical treatment to the victim. Fire rescue told the officers that they had done a great job in applying the occlusive dressing. They transported the victim to the hospital in critical condition, but the victim survived his injuries thanks to quick actions of Officers Hess, Ferris, and Bakri. Officers Hess, Ferris, and Bakri responded to their training when faced with a life-threatening situation. Amid a chaotic event, their quick and decisive actions saved the life of an individual who was suffering from multiple gunshot wounds. Therefore, it is my pleasure to present Officer Joshua Hess, Officer Anthony Ferris, and Officer Amnana Bakri with the life-saving award for their actions on that day. Congratulations.
All right. So, Deputy Commander Sheeler of the 1st District, I want you to know, Commander Gagan slipped me $20. He said, I got to go in front of 1D, no matter what you do. $20 goes a long way. It's like pumpkin spice latte time. But I got all kinds of love for 1D as being the former commander there and get to work with you. So if you can come on up here, let's talk about some life-saving awards for 1D.
Cut my hair and everything like him just to get up here, and it didn't even work. Good afternoon. As you said, I'm the Deputy Commander of the 1st District. The first award is for PO1 Alec DeFori. On June 18th, 1D officers were dispatched to an address in Potomac for a shooting that had just occurred. The victim called the police to report that he had just shot himself accidentally in the hand while cleaning his gun, and that he, quote, lost a lot of blood. Officer DeFiore arrived at the residence quickly and deployed with his first aid kit. He was approaching the home when the victim exited the house covered in blood. It was immediately apparent that the injury was severe in nature and that it was still actively bleeding. Officer DiFiore wasted no time by applying a tourniquet to the victim's arm, which effectively stopped any further loss of blood. Officer DiFiore then directed fire rescue into the scene and escorted the victim to the ambulance. The victim was rushed to the hospital where he was treated for his injuries and survived. During a subsequent sweep of the house, officers located a large pool of blood inside the home, indicating that the victim had already lost a significant amount of blood prior to Officer DiFiore's arrival. Based on his quick response and decisive actions on scene in a stressful situation to save the life of another who was bleeding profusely, the department would like to present Officer DiFiore with a life-saving award. Congratulations. PO1 Clement Zhang, can you come up to the stage? On July 10th, 1D officers were dispatched to an address on Willowbrook Drive in Potomac to check the welfare of a subject who was acting erratically. The victim, a recovering drug addict, was suffering from what family described as a mental episode. Officers arrived at the residence and after a brief search, located the victim in a nearby wooded area in a creek and a pool of blood. It was determined that the victim had cut both his wrists. Officer Zhang, realizing immediately that this was a grave situation due to the amount of blood loss, quickly retrieved his first aid kit and began applying bandages and wraps. Pressure was placed on the injuries to slow the bleeding. Then the victim, likely under the influence of some sort of CDS, became physically combative. He used his arms and legs to violently kick and punch those who were trying to assist him. Despite all of this, Officer Zhang kept pressure applied to the victim's injuries. At times, the victim became unresponsive, and Officer Zhang would attempt to stimulate him by rubbing his chest. He placed the victim in a recovery position to prevent him from choking. He calmly communicated and directed fire rescue and other officers to the scene. When they arrived, he helped them extricate the victim from the creek, which was significantly below the walking path above. Despite all the chaos and stress, Officer Zhang acted with confidence and control. He quickly responded to the scene, navigated several hundred feet of wooded area, jumped down into a creek, controlled a combative subject who was under the influence of an unknown substance, and successfully applied medical care to a dying subject. For these reasons, Officer Clement Zhang is being presented with a life-saving award. Congratulations.
Good news is no one else offered me $20, so we'll go in order from now on. Although, hey, Spoon, I'm sorry, but Hess, wow, that's a suit. We might be doing it like a Zoolander type pose off here at the end of the show. All right, we'll see if there's anyone else. Shanda, you want in on that? Okay. All right. All right, so now we have some life-saving awards from the 3rd District. Commander Dave McBain, if you want to come on up here.
Good afternoon. Can I have Officer Shandaberry and Stephanie Zaz please come up here, join me on the stage? While they're coming up, I'll just let you know, back in March, Chief Jones called me in his office and said, I'm going to make you a commander, and I'm going to send you down to 3D. And I was like, 3D? And, that's God's country over there. And, you know, I got down there, and I have to tell you, I'm going to recognize these officers and a few more today, but every single day I listen to the radio, and it's just countless calls for service where those officers could be up here with me and I could be honoring them as well. So for these officers to be here and we're honoring them just goes to show you the quality of work and the sacrifice that that these guys down in Silver Spring do. They're amazing, and I'm very proud to be up here. So let's get to it. On April 19th, 2020, officers responded to an address on Hastings Drive in Silver Spring for an assault in progress. Once on the scene, they located a male standing in front of the address, but they didn't have any clue what this guy was about and what was going on at the call. They just knew they had an assault. With very little information, these officers entered the residence and observed another male, Nicholas Miranda, laying on the kitchen floor. Miranda had multiple serious injuries to his head. He was moaning and otherwise completely unconscious or unresponsive. It was clear that officers needed to do life-saving work on Miranda. He had lost a significant amount of blood and had significant injuries all over his head and body. Officer Shanda Berry, Stephanie Zaz, and Victor Santos began that life-saving work by applying first aid. At one point, as Berry and Zaz were working on the subject, they needed additional supplies, which Santos provided. They completed this or continued this treatment until Montgomery County Fire and Rescue got to the scene and eventually transported this individual in critical condition to a local trauma center. Mr. Miranda was quickly transported, and unfortunately, as a result of his injuries, he still remains in a coma with a severe spinal injury and other issues. But I will say that these officers gave him that chance to fight for his life, which he continues to do today. Officer Shannon Berry and Officer Stephanie Zaz and Victor Santos entered an unstable environment, unsure of the circumstances, but immediately recognized the need to begin critical care on the victim. They focused on saving his life. The victim still has a long way to go for recovery, but without the quick response and actions of these officers, he may not have an opportunity to live at all. So I'm very proud to recognize Officer Shanda Berry and Officer Stephanie Zaz and Officer Victor Santos, who's actually in a special assignment team school today, with this life-saving award. I don't believe Officer Eric Houston is here, although if I'm wrong, speak up. All right. So as many of you guys know, officers work a lot of crazy hours, and Officer Houston's no different. And so he does work at nights and tends to catch up on people. So I do want to recognize, though, real quick, his actions that got him this award. So on June 2nd, 2021, Seth Morris was having dinner at the Silver Branch Brewery located at 8401 Colesville Road when he suddenly fell to the ground and became unresponsive, having no pulse. The chief actually spoke about this in his remarks. A group of citizens, including a doctor, immediately began rendering first aid while other officers while other people called 911. Officer Eric Houston arrived shortly after and immediately took over chest compressions and continued them until an AED was brought on the scene and activated. Houston's CPR efforts along with the AED were able to revive Mr. Morris, who was quickly transported to a local hospital. Mr. Morris eventually was diagnosed with having a severe heart attack, the Widowmaker. I'd like to share a little bit of a letter that Mr. Morris sent to Officer Houston's supervisor, Sergeant Neil Mohart. It says, "I spoke with Officer Houston and thanked him for helping to save my life. After my heart stopped, I was still aware that I was slowly moving down a peaceful, painless vortex, but it wasn't my time. My companion that night, who was the doctor, told me that Officer Houston did an amazing job in administering CPR to help save my life and bring me back from the void soon enough to keep me whole. Officer Eric Houston did what he swore to do when becoming a police officer. He served and protected. He served and protected. He saved a life. And for these actions, I'm very proud to recognize him for that life-saving award.
Thank you, Dave. So luckily enough for Montgomery County Police, there is not a height requirement. So Dave and I can be cops here. Thank you. But let's have another tall commander up here. Go ahead. Come on up here, Ed Palace of the 5th District.
Good afternoon. Bob, can you come on up, please? So while Bob Hunt is coming up, I just wanted to say that I got a similar call from the chief. And when I was told I got the 5th District, I did a happy dance. And then the chief looked at me and high-fived me and said, I always liked you better than Commander McBain. So I just want to say that. Want to recognize Mr. Bob Hunt. Congratulations on your retirement, Bob. Who retired from MCP, was out to dinner with his wife, eating at a restaurant in Frederick with their friends, Officer Heath Berry and his wife. Officer Berry suddenly suffered a catastrophic medical event. Officer Berry immediately displayed symptoms similar to a seizure. Mr. Hunt quickly conducted a medical assessment and determined Officer Berry had no pulse and needed immediate medical intervention. Mr. Hunt immediately performed CPR. The Frederick Fire Rescue Services were called and responded quickly. Officer Berry's pulse restored and stabilized. Officer Berry was transported to Frederick Memorial Hospital. Officer Berry was admitted and immediately transferred to the intensive care unit where he was put in an induced coma. After a period of time, a doctor specializing in coronary issues advised that due to Officer Berry receiving immediate life-saving measures by Bob Hunt here, he stood a good chance of recovery. The doctor also advised that the chance of brain injury due to loss of oxygen was minimized because of Bob's immediate and quick actions. Within a few days, Officer Berry regained consciousness and showed immediate signs of improvement. Officer Berry's condition was downgraded and is on his way to a full recovery. Mr. Bob Hunt, I recognize you as receiving the Chief's Appreciation Award for your actions consistent with the guidelines set forth in the Life Saving Award. Congratulations.
Bob, thank you for coming, because I will say when we were trying to praise you for your actions, you didn't want any of it. You just wanted to save your friend. So thank you. Thank you for coming and sharing that with us today. All right. By the way, Jane Bowers, I see you back there. Retired Corporal Jane, hi. I love seeing the retirees come back. This is fantastic. Also, Rosario showed up because he heard that there was like some sort of dress contest, see who's best dressed. You didn't wear a tie, okay? Major crimes. Anyway, now can I have Eric Stancliffe, the commander of the 6th District?
Good afternoon. I'd like to ask Officer Timothy Surlow and Corporal Seamus Gailey to come up. I'd like to invite them up, and Officer Stephanie Simon if she's here, but I did not see her. On June 25th, 2021, a call was dispatched for a shooting that just occurred in the area of 5 Gramsdale Court in Gaithersburg, Maryland. Officer Timothy Surlow, Officer Stephanie Simon, and Corporal Seamus Gailey were the first on scene of the incident and found a male victim lying in the roadway suffering from multiple gunshot wounds. The victim was semi-conscious, bleeding heavily from the chest, back, and lower extremities. Officer Serlo and Simon immediately began looking over the victim to find his wounds and applied direct pressure to them to reduce the bleeding with their gloved hands. Corporal Gailey ran back to his cruiser, retrieved a medical kit, and returned to the scene, and with his partners continued to administer first aid to the victim until fire rescue arrived on scene. Fire rescue advised that their quick actions were essential to preserving the life of the victim, and it is my pleasure to present them with this life-saving award.
Okay, so now we're going to have a couple. We do this ceremony a few times a year, but we have some big awards during the course of the year. Some big awards during the course of the year that only come up once, and they're very special. And I think when you hear about what these supervisors have done, and also these ethical leaders, you don't necessarily have to have rank to be a leader. So with that, if I could have Jack Hack, the president, retired Montgomery County Police, president of our Alumni Association, come on up here. We're going to be doing the Ethical Leadership Award. Oh, my neighbor, Jim Humphreys, lieutenant. How you doing, Jim? You taking so long to walk up here, I got a vamp. Those are nice glasses.
Hi, everybody. I'm Captain Amy Dahm. I am honored to be here today. I'm also happy I didn't put on my green coat because I get heels on, which means I'm just a little bit taller than the podium, so it makes me happy. Today, I am here to recognize one of my detectives, Detective John Witherspoon. I think everyone in the room probably knows Spoon in some way, shape, or form because he's just one of these people that everybody knows. And Chief Frank talked for just a moment about when we talk about leadership, leadership isn't about rank. But when we talk about leadership, it's what Spoon epitomizes every day that he comes to work. In his daily job as a detective in my division, he's responsible for finding some of the missing children that are reported here in the county. When we talk about missing children, we're talking about hundreds every year. What Spoon does that's a little different, and what the detectives in his unit do that's a little bit different, are create connections and friendships with kids that ensure that they return back to their homes in a safe manner. He finds kids in Chicago, California. Some of his co-detectives have found children in foreign countries. This is what they do on a daily basis. Recently, in the wake of the George Floyd death, Spoon noticed that policing was weighing really heavily on his colleagues. It was weighing not only in the community, the changes in society, but he noticed also with his friends, with other detectives, that he wanted to start conversations, to start healing people from within, to start fostering understanding, to start opening dialogue. So in June of 2020, Detective Witherspoon took it upon himself to create focus sessions at the academy. And for the last year and a half, he's been running these focus sessions on a weekly basis. And what they really are about is conversation, it's about healing, it's about dialogue. And it's for these focus sessions that today, the Montgomery County Police Alumni Association, represented by Jack Hack and Jim Humphreys behind me, are recognizing Detective Witherspoon with their Ethical Leadership Award. So I'd like to congratulate Detective Witherspoon.
Captain Dom. And I need to clarify something. Jim Humphreys owns a Ford Expedition that actually works, and I don't want you doing donuts through my yard. It's Captain Jim Humphreys. Sorry, sir. It's an excursion. Ooh, that's even worse. Those bigger ruts.
One extra comment. We are recruiting for you who are close to retirement. We'd love to have you as a member of our association.
You heard that. The Alumni Association, our attrition's up. Join up. Okay. I'm waiting for this, bro. Look, this is really cool. We got the crime. Look, our professional staff is second to none. We got all kinds of people supporting the operation. But the crime lab folks, look at, they all came in back here for you, bro. I told you, plug in those DNA machines, start getting some results. Now look where we are. All right, so if I could have Assistant Chief Patil come up and present our professional staff supervisor of the year.
Good afternoon. My name is Dinesh Patil. I'm the Assistant Chief of our Investigative Services Bureau. I'm going to ask Jen to come up here and stand with me because I know that's going to absolutely embarrass the you-know-what's out of her. I've been watching her the entire time from back here and just sort of like, you just tell there's a person that I know that does not want an accolade or any kind of recognition. She's supposed to do her job. It's Jen, so which is why we're going to make a point of doing it here. And I also thought, as I was sitting back here, I used to be the MSB chief, so Ian and I and Amy and I have done these awards and different things over the years. And I thought about these moments, people come up and help you, and Dan Fritz would have been that guy, right? He would have walked in here and been like, hey boss, what do you need, man? What do you need? And we'd be like, no, Dan, we're good, or whatever. Or whatever, even if you didn't need it, he'd rearrange all the chairs. He'd probably make sure they were perfectly inches apart. At the end of it, he'd say, right on. And so it made me realize that moment, Dan's that force that you don't know that would be there to help you every step of the way, and so remembered him again here today. So we're here to recognize Jen Bro as our professional staff supervisor of the year. And it really is my honor and privilege. Jen oversees, as our acting director currently, all of our laboratory and forensic services, and that includes our biology section, which for most of us realize, like the DNA lab, our chemistry, which is the folks that do a lot of our work for drug analysis, our firearms examination unit, which is busier than ever these days, that examine our guns for ballistic evidence and shell casings from scenes, our latent print group, which is the fingerprint folks that make those connections, crime scene, and a lot of other moving parts, and now our evidence unit, which wasn't part of this back then, but we threw something else on our plate. And these are the folks I hear more and more as I go on about how they are really our unsung heroes. They're behind the scenes. They're as much heroes as our folks over here that are literally getting their hands bloody and are in the mix, putting their lives on the line. You will see over and over that our crime lab folks and our forensics folks across the board do a lot to really help save the day. So oftentimes, you'll get called upon to be in an acting supervisor role or an acting assistant chief. Usually you're like, okay, I can do that for a bit, no big deal. A little extra work, I'll make a couple of bucks, a little bump in the pay, what's not to like? Well, we ran into a situation in February 2020 where our director of the lab had some serious medical issues and could no longer perform his job at that time. So we didn't know where that was gonna go, and we asked Jen if she could help us out, and being Jen, it's like, sure, yeah, no big deal. And that was February 2020. She's still doing it today. And immediately, and again, as oftentimes you think, well, how hard of a job could it be? I know the lab stuff. I've seen how people do stuff. How hard could it be? And immediately she got thrown into the fire by recognizing that there was a unit in overall that needed some additional training. And Jen doesn't typically just take one thing and say, okay, I'm going to fix this one thing. She looks at it strategically across the whole enterprise and goes, okay, how will this affect our other units? So she took this training and put it to all the supervisors in the lab to avoid the issue that came up. Because you can imagine, you've seen about it in the paper many times, right? Crime labs are under tremendous amount of scrutiny across the nation. We have to get it right. We have to make sure that what we do and the convictions we get are absolutely rooted in science and truth and can't be wrong. So she has to make sure she gets it right every day. And so as she gets into this and she fixes this one problem, then all of a sudden she finds out that about a month prior to her leaving, our quality assurance manager was going to be leaving. Quality assurance is a big part of what makes sure that we get things right, that the people that are doing their job have oversight, and that we're in regulation with COMAR, which is the Code of Maryland Regulations, that our laboratory accreditation, that all that stuff, if we don't get that right, our lab is shut down. Okay, we have over 1 million citizens. We can't have our lab get shut down. So then, now all of a sudden, Jenna says, okay, I'm gonna take on this and I'm gonna train somebody now to take over this quality assurance role in the temporary assignment. We then had a technical leader come on in our forensic biology unit, another new responsibility, and we've decided we'd take on another program. We start Star Mix. The Star Mix, without getting too technical, is where you can basically take multiple, I'm gonna screw this up, but basically multiple samples of DNA and you can figure out like who the individual DNA is, right? This is some cutting edge stuff. Not something you wanna do when you're in an acting role, right? You don't wanna start new things. John's like, no, we're gonna do it, why not? Probably thinking she was gonna be here as long as she is. And then COVID hit, and our world changed forever. And all of a sudden, we know that we had to pivot every single thing we do, but as Chief Jones relayed earlier, we couldn't stop doing police work. We couldn't stop investigating crimes, and we couldn't stop performing the necessary laboratory work that had to be done. So Jen pivoted, like she often does. She changed schedules. She made sure that there were protocols in place, that things were being cleaned the way they needed to be cleaned. We had to adapt people into the telework world. We went, if you don't know, the police department went from having 0 telework to all of a sudden being probably about 40 to 60% telework, depending on what we're talking about on a given day. And she had to do that on really just, as we all know, right, March 15th, it was a drop of dime and we were all in it. And just as, there was no really end in sight, why not do an audit? Because there's nothing more fun to do an audit of a lab by your accrediting body. And if you can imagine, nobody likes a tax audit. Well, imagine you run a crime lab, and again, people's lives, their convictions, making sure we deliver justice, has a great deal to do with what we do in this lab. So we decided that we would have an audit, and I don't know if we decided, probably it was just a schedule, and you had bad luck. So you ended up in the middle of it. Our quality assurance manager, who was the acting person at the time, had never been through this before. So Jen absolutely jumped in to help this person say, hey, we're gonna get through this. I don't know that I would describe you as the most fun person I know, because you and I are pretty serious about stuff and we're always boom, boom, boom. But she even made a game, a Kahoot game, I don't even know what that is, to help her staff remember things and practice for this audit so we would be ready, so that we would come out of this thing like a shining star. And I don't mean that bad way, like you're just usually getting it done. But so she even realized, like, how can we make our folks excel during this whole thing? And by the way, COVID is going on during this whole situation. Jenna was able to make sure that we had all the documents uploaded, make sure the auditor had everything they need, make sure that we could do this audit in a virtual process, which was something we hadn't done before. The laboratory was audited in 181 areas for compliance. We were found to be compliant in 169 areas. And those 12 areas that we weren't compliant in just needed little tweaks. Nobody ever comes out of an audit with 100% findings, so then the audit companies wouldn't be necessary, right? But this was half of the issues that we had our previous audit, right? So this is all going on and on and on. The lab has gotten better every day. I'm gonna, again, just kind of wind this down by saying we really don't truly thank and appreciate everybody in our forensics teams, whether it's electronic crimes to all the other units, biology, chemistry, pattern sciences, hopefully not crime scene or crime scene techs. But they truly behind the scenes in many ways, but like we can't do our job without them. We're very lucky to have these resources in Montgomery County. They're part of our overall system that makes our crime fighting capable and gives us the ability to do what we do. We're in unprecedented times right now with violent crime. I've been leaning on Jen like crazy since I took over in I think April about our gun crimes and kniving and shell casings, and we have the pedal to the metal, and not once has she ever wavered in all of this. And none of this happens by accident. Leadership doesn't happen by accident. It's got to be thoughtful, it's got to be professional. In Jen's case, it's got to be smart. She's educated me along the way, and I can't honestly say thank you enough. I'm excited about where we're going, and I can't think of anybody deserves it more, so congratulations.
By the way, though, Chief Patel didn't say it. This is the professional staff civilian of the year.
Bob. Joe, do we still have tape in that? Can we go back and, okay. So I'm excited about all these awards, but this one, when I saw it come up, I'm excited about this one. When I saw this young sergeant get promoted and come to the 3rd District, it was really, we were lucky down there, and then when you saw him go to work in one of the most difficult, all of our districts have their challenges, but to see him go to work, I really think it's neat that he's going to be honored today. So to recognize our sworn Supervisor of the Year, can I have Commander Dave McBain of the 3rd District?
Can I have Sergeant Darren Crandall come up and join me on the stage? Chief, I thought that Chief Patil only spoke for long periods of time in stat.
Woo! I want you to be fully informed, Dave. He's a preacher.
So I'm going to try to stay on script here, but I will tell you that when I reviewed the award recognition and prepared my comments today, I recognized that I just couldn't say everything that was captured in what Sergeant Crandall's done in actually 2020, because he's being recognized for 2020 Supervisor of the Year. So I just want you guys to realize that I still have a lot of great things to say about him, but it doesn't begin to explain what this guy's done down in Silver Spring and actually other places in the county. So I've had the honor to recognize Sergeant Darren Crandall for the Supervisor of the Year for 2020, but I'd also like to recognize Corporal Timmy Hollis for taking the time to provide the department with a detailed and sincere nomination for Sergeant Crandall. You know, these supervisors go above and beyond. They do a lot of stuff for their officers, and to have one of his own take the time to write a 5-page recommendation for why he's the best supervisor in your county, it really goes a long way. So good for you, Timmy. So as I read the nomination, I recognize that when presenting today, it's not my words, although I concur with everything written, but it's the words of Corporal Hollis, as well as the other officers that worked with Sergeant Crandall and currently work with him today. I'm going to take a moment to highlight some of the comments made of Sergeant Crandall by the officers that he's worked with and worked for and have worked for him over the last year. During 2020, Sergeant Crandall was assigned to 2 different patrol shifts when he first got promoted to sergeant. The first was in the 6th District, and now I'm happy to say that his second assignment was in the 3rd District, where he's with me today. During 2020, Sergeant Crandall also was, because he was a decentralized SWAT officer at that time, or actually coming out of SWAT, he answered the call from the Special Operations Division to help them out to supervise raids and other special operations initiatives while a couple of their supervisors were not able to perform their job at full duty status, and he helped them out significantly. Sergeant Crandall became a sergeant at a time when the department, along with the rest of the world, was dealing with a global pandemic. As if it's not hard enough dealing with the daily operations of a shift, he now had the added responsibilities of making sure his officers remained healthy, both physically and mentally. As we navigated through COVID-19, Sergeant Crandall began to make a lasting impression on all the officers that were under his supervision. He would never say an officer worked for him, rather worked with him. He began developing strong leadership qualities, and his officers overwhelmingly trusted him for his leadership. Sergeant Crandall would have his officers thinking about their career aspirations, whether investigations or collision reconstruction, plainclothes operations. He would hold training days for the shift, in those areas to give the officers an introduction into that field of policing. He developed a special assignment team day that focused on different types of training and skills. He was always trying to develop his officers for the next step in their careers. And that's as a young sergeant. I mean, I kind of think you see that in some of the more senior sergeants, but for a brand new sergeant to become that engaged is saying a lot. Officer Lorenzo Acosta had the following to say about Sergeant Crandall. He led the shift by example. He would run the road and assist on calls. He treated everyone on the shift fairly, equally, and with respect. He would help in any way he could. He was able to put on multiple trainings for the shift and expand our knowledge, see different aspects of the police work, and increase our officer safety. He motivated the shift to work together as a team and emphasized attention to detail on calls and when helping the community. Officer Aaron Rourke, also from the 6th District, said, "In my 20-year career, I have never been so motivated or honored to work for a supervisor. Sergeant Crandall came to our shift during tough times and displayed leadership and grace by supporting our shift and making us better officers. In a time of policing, when it would have been easier to be disgruntled and hide, he showed up every day to work with a professional and positive attitude which filtered to our shift. Every overlap, he set up training at various locations to make us better officers, skills that one day may save our lives." In September of 2020, 6D's loss was 3D's gain, and Sergeant Crandall was assigned to lead the 3rd District's 4 IDA shift, arguably the busiest sector in Montgomery County. When he came to the shift, he held individual meetings with every member of the shift, as you can imagine, to start the process over again of what he had done in 6D. Officer Ryan Yamada, who's on his shift now, said, "Sergeant Crandall allows everyone to find what they like and helps to put them in a position to succeed and get where they want to go." So reading through the 5 pages of the award nomination written by Corporal Hollis, I recognized once again that I could not fit everything that Sergeant Crandall has done in this short time that he's been a supervisor. However, the takeaways are on scene, working together, build up, team concept, cares, decision maker, supporter, and friend. Whether it's handling a barricade, a car rally, or any other type of call that we handle down in the 3rd District, Sergeant Crandall is there to assist, support, and guide his officers to a successful conclusion. So I just, those were a lot of words that were in the recognition of a lot of things that I took from Corporal Hollis, but I will say that when I did come to the 3rd District, Darren was the first sergeant to reach out to me and welcome me to the district. But I will tell you that when things pop off down in 3D, it is really good to know in the evenings that he's down there handling things, and he knocks them down, and he's a leader, and he makes this place a lot safer, not only for the community but for the officers. And so for that, I'm really, really honored and proud to present Sergeant Darren Crandall as the Supervisor of the Year for 2020.
So Commander McBain, let me get this straight. We're going to come up, kick around the good Assistant Chief Patillo, and then we're just going to go and go and go?
Thank you, Darren.
Come on, man. All right. With that, can I have Pastor Zetz come up for our benediction?
Why don't we stand? Turn to the person next to you and say, we're going forward. We're going, you got to get the hand out. We're going forward. We'll work on that. Revelation chapter 15, verses 3 and 4 says, great and marvelous are your deeds, Lord God Almighty. Just and true are your ways, King of the ages. Who will not fear you, O Lord, and bring glory to your name? For you alone are holy. All nations will come and worship before you. Father, we thank you for the opportunity we've had to honor those before us. Now as we go, may we be blessed and empowered to continue to serve through your amazing grace. Give an abundance of wisdom for each officer here today. I pray today that you would meet every need in every department represented here. Lord, I pray for divine protection to be upon our entire law enforcement family. I pray that you would touch Montgomery County with your mercy. Lord, may each person here today be filled with hope as they leave, and may your glorious peace rest upon each one of us now. And Father, I pray especially for Katie, for the daughters, for Noelle and Layla and Gracie. And Father, I lift up Daniel's mom, Judy, and his brother, Peter. And we just pray for the entire family, Father. And I just pray where our hearts are cut, where we've been fractured, where we sense the pain. I thank you that you're the God of all comfort. And I ask that you would just minister to every person that's in pain today over this loss. We thank you. We thank you for this opportunity that we've had. We pray in your glorious name. Amen. Amen.
Thank you, Pastor Zetz. I will tell you, it takes a lot to put on a presentation like this and make me look adequate, and they've done a very good job at that today. So I wanted to take a second and thank Joe Lowry, the great Bobby, Captain Dom, Lieutenant Satinsky. Hi, Leah. Thank you. You're doing a great job on the board. Captain Ian Clark, and of course Dave Roloff, master of pictures over there. We have some light refreshments in the back that I hope you'll stay with us and share. And I've actually gotten through this thing. The two lawyers in the front row, they haven't, sorry, third row, not you guys. I know. You should see the look on his eyes right now. I said, lawyer. Anyway, there's two lawyers. They haven't written anything down, so I think I got out of here unscathed. Congratulations to the winners. We're all very proud of you and your accomplishments, and keep doing the outstanding work that you've been doing for your entire career. With that, thank you. Have a great day.